Victor Wembanyama is doing things that we have quite literally never seen before in the NBA. Not just for a rookie, but for any player ever. His overall impact, especially on the defensive end of the floor, is beyond even what I thought it would be. And I was very optimistic about what a rookie season Wembanyama would look like. And I just don't even really know what we're supposed to do with this guy. Now, if you watched any of my videos before the season talking about Wemby coming into the year, there were two kind of main points. One was offensively, I thought it was going to take a little while, at least in terms of the really exciting perimeter stuff. One of the main things that got people excited about Wemby was this concept of him as a perimeter player, a guy that's 7'5" and can dribble and can shoot and can create his own offense. And I felt like a lot of that stuff was going to be a little bit further away than maybe people were expecting. He's incredibly skilled for his size, but not necessarily overwhelmingly skilled in terms of his handle and his creation compared to a lot of other really good NBA players. So I thought that was going to take some time. And then defensively, I really felt like the impact was going to be felt on that end of the floor. And for the most part, I've been right about that. I think the offensive stuff is actually even better than I thought it would be, but a lot of it is around the rim, just throwing him lobs. As long as he gets the ball within 8 feet, he's going to score, and that stuff's been really exciting. Still going to take some time with some of the perimeter stuff, but this month at least, he's been shooting the ball extremely well from three. That's going to be a development in his game that we're going to need to continue to keep an eye on. And defensively, it's honestly even crazier than I thought it was going to be. He is everywhere. And you can just see some of these players get to the rim, and even against guys like, Rudy Gobert, there are players that make you wonder, oh, do I need to get this shot up right now or should I kick it out? There are guys like that. But Wemby is on a different level because it's like there's this bubble around him when he's on the floor that teams just kind of start to avoid as the game goes along. They don't want to go to the rim when he's there. They don't even want to swing the ball to his side because they'll get a steal. Guys don't want to take jump shots over him because he'll block those as well. And the level of impact that we've seen from him is unique, not just for a rookie, but for an NBA player in general. And San Antonio is now in this really interesting situation moving forward now because you kind of have to figure out exactly what the Wemby timeline looks like, because traditionally, even if you have a really good rookie season, like last year, Paolo had a really, really good rookie season, but it was clear that it was still going to take some time for him to truly be, at his peak, what you really, really want him to be to build around. And so Orlando looked at that and you're like, you know what? We have some time to figure this out. We don't need to be really good next year or the year after. In 3 years, 4 years, that's when we want our peak Paolo team to really be put together. That's typically how things work in the NBA when you have a rookie that shows up and has an impact. But Wemby is on a little bit of a different level here for a couple of different reasons. One, there's a difference between having a really good rookie season and having a really good season in general. And even though offensively some of the efficiency stuff isn't always great with Wemby outside of 10 feet, defensively, he is having as big of an impact as any single defensive player in the entire league, not just amongst rookies. And if you're going to have that level of impact from a guy that still has so much growth still to make as an offensive player as well, if I'm San Antonio, I start thinking about, okay, peak Wemby might be next year, the year after that. We don't really need to be planning for 3 and 4 years from now. We might need to start planning for next year and the year after, because his impact is just different. It's not, oh, we have this great individual offensive player, now our offense is going to be much better. It's not that. It is a great, incredible defensive player that you can build winning strategies around that is still going to continue to get better offensively as well. And that is a unique situation that San Antonio finds themselves in. And obviously we know that the roster in San Antonio currently isn't fantastic, but they do have some pieces, like Devin Vassell. They have some future draft picks as well. I still think Sohan can be something for them potentially alongside Wemby. And of course, Greg Popovich is signed for the next couple of seasons to be the head coach as well. And there's a foundation here in place around Wemby where things can get very exciting in San Antonio very quickly next year or the year after. And the other part of this as well, and I don't want to put, any kind of negative vibes towards Wemby about this at all, but if you're the Spurs, you do always have to be kind of thinking about when this peak era really is going to be and how long it's truly going to last. Because even though Wemby as a 7'5" guy is the outlier of outliers when it comes to his body control, his fluidity, his handle, his skills, you still have to be concerned about possible injury stuff with him because of how big he is and because of his frame. That's just always going to be a thing. And the history of the league tells us that these guys typically break down. They don't have super long careers. They're really impactful when they're good. But if you're the Spurs, I don't know that I would be counting on 27, 28-year-old Victor Wembanyama being the best version of the guy that you get. The best version of Wemby might be next year, the year after, or the year after that. And I think it's important to keep that in mind when you're building a team around him. I'm not necessarily advocating for them to go out and spend a ton of stuff on trying to get veteran players around him this offseason, but if you have an opportunity to bring a star in alongside Wemby, I think the timeline is accelerated more for him than arguably for any rookie ever, because of his overall impact and because potentially of some long-term injury stuff. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I hope he stays healthy. I hope he has an awesome 20-year career. It's just something you have to think about. This isn't a 6'7" guy that is, generally speaking, going to be really durable in the long term and maybe play for 15 years. That's, generally speaking, the history of the league tells us that's not what this is going to be, and it's important to keep that in mind in terms of how you build your team. And it's a really tough situation to be in, right? I mean, obviously they have this incredible player, but you don't want to go semi all in too quickly and use up all of your assets, and then you're not as good when you really need to be if there is a longer career here for Wemby, which I think is kind of something that happened in New Orleans a little bit with Anthony Davis, where they felt the need to be really good because they didn't want him to leave. And then once they actually used up a lot of their assets, they didn't have a ton left to really build a top level team, and they were good quickly, but they were never a great team. And I think San Antonio could risk that being a possibility for them, where maybe they bring in a couple of guys in the offseason and then, next year they win 45 games, but then they never reach anything above that. And that's a very, very difficult situation to be in. It's one of the reasons why team building situations in a league are so difficult. But the difference here is there's a distinct possibility that the level that Wembanyama gets to, because of his defensive impact, because of the growth that he still has to make offensively, just raises the level of the team to a point that it's okay if you go out and make some moves this year, because whatever the peak Wembanyama year is, whatever the year is that he is at his best, he's so good that it's okay if the rest of the roster isn't like some kind of super team caliber group. Now, I understand that all of this might seem premature. It might seem way ahead of schedule for me to be talking about the possibility of San Antonio building a championship team around Wemby in a couple years from now and all that stuff. But it's important to think about this kind of stuff. It's important to have a long-term view of what the team is going to look like when you have someone as good as and as impactful as Wemby has been as a rookie. And it's not just his play itself. He's making these incredible plays, but he's getting compliments from the best players in the league after every single game. These guys all recognize, they all realize what potentially is on the horizon here in San Antonio, and I cannot wait to see not only what he does over the next couple of seasons, but also how he finishes the season. The Spurs have said that they're going to try and increase his minutes a little bit. They've been conservative with him throughout the year, and they're going to try and ramp some of those minutes up towards the end of the year, maybe to get him used to more minutes in his second season. And this is just going to be something that we're going to be constantly keeping an eye on, is how far up the standing San Antonio can go, what moves they want to make in the offseason. I would be very, very surprised if we go into next year and the guard situation in San Antonio is the same way that it has been this season. If they don't have more floor spacing, if they don't have more complementary pieces around Wemby, I would be shocked. There's no scenario in my mind that they go into next year and are still one of the worst teams in the entire league. I'm not saying necessarily that means they're going to go and trade for someone like Trae Young, as has been rumored, but I feel like something is going to happen in San Antonio, and it's been necessitated by just an unbelievable, groundbreaking rookie season from Victor Wembanyama.